Welcome back to the GTN show.
Yeah, on this week's show, we have some drama and DQs at the Vina World Cup.
Yeah, some confusion, or so it seems, between World Triathlon, European Triathlon, and the PTO.
And have we seen the arrival of our new Ironman 70.3 world champion?
Okay, kicking off with reacts, things we've spotted on social media. Not many this week, but some fun ones.
It's kind of the silly season of triathlon at the moment, isn't it? Not that much racing going on. Well, Canyon and PTO have put out a bit of a collab where they've got some of the top athletes to kind of interview each other, and they've got a few in this series. The first one is actually Jan Frodeno and Mika Noort having a interesting discussion whilst they make an omelette together without the recipe. It looked like it turned out okay. We didn't actually get to taste it. Interesting video.
I haven't actually got around to watching them all yet, but we've also got another one between Daniel Backegaard and Kyle Smith, another one with Lionel Sanders and Kat Matthews, and finally one with Chelsea Sodaro. Maybe there's more to come. We'll see.
Yeah, so there's a whole series you can go over on YouTube and watch that. Interesting to see some of the kind of personalities of these athletes coming through, and not all like it's away from races, so a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
Then we've also got Javier Gomez. Making a comeback, if you can call it a comeback. He's been kind of out for like 18 months, struggling with injuries and such. And you kind of think he would be retired at this point, but he's definitely not ready to hang up the boots. And he's heading to 70.3 in Mossel Bay this coming weekend. And then following that up with a race in December in Taupo, New Zealand. So he's hoping to qualify, I think, for next year's 70.3 World Champs. But either way, it'll be interesting to see how he can race. Obviously, one of the greats and still trying to compete with the top guys.
I'm such a Javier Gomez fan. I really hope he does well. Anyway, moving on. Finally, Seb Keenley is finishing his discontinued tour. He did Norseman and then kind of teased after that maybe he's not quite done with racing and he's going to do one final long distance race. In fact, he said that to you, didn't he, when you're out in Uzbekistan? And it is Cozumel this coming weekend.
He calls it Hawaii Light because it's also a hot, sweaty island, but not quite Hawaii. But it's going to be his final race of his career. He'll be hanging up the boots after this one, and he's hoping to have a good race. But he actually says in his video, it's more about the process of finishing it with a proper race and not just kind of going, oh, well, Norseman wasn't exactly how I wanted it to go, so I'm going to hang up the boots. No, he actually wants to go out on his terms. And it's been quite a discontinued tour. He's done 11 videos, I think, now, so maybe it's time to discontinue the discontinued tour. Anyway, we'll be watching him closely in this final race of his. Good luck, Sebi.
Okay, now on with the Tri news and two event date announcements from the PTO. So first off, we got the PTO Asian Open, which again will be taking place in Singapore. That will be taking place from the 12th to the 14th of April, which will again stage the 100k formats for the pro men and women, and they call experienced age groupers, and two duathlons on top of that. And we also have the PTO European Open, again returning to Ibiza, dates for that 28th to 29th of September, with the title of European Champion up for grabs too for the female and male pro races, and of course for the age groupers too. And that's all obviously thanks to this new partnership between the PTO and World Triathlon, which now recognises that PTO World Tour as a World Championship Tour of long distance triathlon.
Yeah, except that it isn't quite. So there was a bit of confusion, and World Triathlon actually put out a statement since the PTO's two announcements and said that actually, although we've agreed to a World Triathlon long distance series, and at the end of that long distance series, in conjunction with the PTO, we will crown the world long distance champion, much like the WTCS series, they haven't actually agreed that the PTO European Open in Ibiza will crown the European champion, and that the PTO were a bit premature in announcing that. In fact, the president of the European Triathlon, Renato Bertrani, said, "We are happy to have collaborations with professional partners like PTO, but at present for the 2024 season, our European Championship for elite and age groupers in middle distance will be staged in the Multisport Festival that will take place in June 2024. The location and date of the Middle Distance European Championships, as well as other European Championships, will be announced next week." So yeah, they say that we are in communication with the PTO to clarify this, but potentially not the European title up for grabs at that PTO European Open in Ibiza. It doesn't really matter, although it does kind of put into stark contrast the fact that there's a bit of confusion about next year's whole kind of calendar, particularly for the pros, but kind of for everyone, because the European location and date hasn't even been announced for championships for the age groupers. And also, you've got this now been announced, the PTO European Open in Ibiza on the 28th of September. And you'll probably remember that the Ironman World Championships for the women is happening in Nice on the 22nd of September. So just 7 days earlier. And I don't think you're going to see the likes of Daniela Reef or Anne Haug or Lucy Charles-Barkley backing up an Ironman World Championships on a pretty tough Nice course with European Championships or European Open in Ibiza just a week later, which is going to, well, I guess it opens the door for a certain Ashley Gentle, doesn't it?
Paula Finlay, the likes.
The specialist.
I mean, I do feel for them at the moment. And obviously this year as well with the Olympic Games, and then obviously trying to attract those sort of athletes, you're trying to work around those dates. But it does feel like with the whole Ironman World Tour announcement, the PTO obviously tried to quickly get out some dates, and maybe a little prematurely, it would seem.
Yeah, but they also haven't got the rest of the dates. There's not much of a World Championship series if you've only got 2 events at this point. I mean, how are they going to crown a world champion based on that? And also, you know, you're clashing with the other world titles or world championships, and it's all getting in a little bit confusion. I think it feels like, despite what we've kind of moving towards in the last few years, where all the race organisers are kind of like pulling in the same direction to lift the sport and put more money in and everything, they all feel like they're going back to the old status quo of pulling against each other and competing for the footfalls of the pros to get them to actually do their races over someone else's, which is not necessarily such a good thing.
You know what? It's probably time we get Sam Renouf on the show. Pick his brains. It's probably time. Yeah, Sam.
Have a proper discussion. For you. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, we'll see where all that lands, but we don't know where the European title is just yet. All right, now it's time for some tech news, and well, this is an interesting one, isn't it?
This is literally what's the tech.
Yeah,
you're missing it, James. So.
Yeah. Okay. Should we do that again? What the actual tech is this? Because this is weird. So a British company has come up with a design that is going to revolutionize the saddle industry, apparently. And get a load of this. I actually had to check whether this was an April Fool's article, and Mark had just pulled it out from April, but it wasn't. It's only just been published.
But James has since bought them out.
He's
actually bought every... No?
Yeah, no. So it's dubbed the Saddle Spur, for obvious reasons. Not a very novel name when you look at what it is.
I mean, I could think of other names.
Yeah, let's not go there. The next evolution in bike saddles is apparently what it is. The founders claim that the Saddle Spur can redefine comfort, performance, and efficiency. And in fact, they actually did a test on this, and they did find that on a 10-mile time trial, the second time round, using the saddle, people were up to 14 seconds faster. However, the designers of the test did say that it could be due to other factors, like course familiarization, which basically means the second time they went round, they went 14 seconds quicker because they knew the corners a little bit better, and they can't definitively conclude that it was this particular saddle. The idea is, of course, that it holds you in space. You cannot move backwards, so therefore you've got a better kind of fulcrum of power that you can put into the pedals, and therefore you will produce more power. I'm dubious.
It's a bit like the old, what was it, the saddle leash thing that, they used to attach onto, so you're like locked in position.
So you could really push power in through your hips, yeah.
I mean, I'd hate to see this in triathlon with a flying mount. But anyway, let us know what you think in the comment section down below.
I am dubious about the benefits of this. I mean, at the very least, they could have made it slightly wider so that it actually supported your lower back a little bit better. I'm not entirely sure why they decided on the particular design that they ended up.
It's got us all talking though. So there we go.
This is true, yeah. All publicity is good publicity.
Okay, now on to the race news and some big drama this weekend in the Vina Del Mar World Cup. In short, the 4 leading females were disqualified for going the wrong way on the run course. They basically cut a very, very small amount off the run course, and as a result, as I say, ended up disqualified. That was Seferis, Zimmervoyanova, Godoy, and Gaultier.
Yeah, now the course was sprint distance, so it was 2.5K laps. And in between those two, when they started the second lap, they were supposed to run to the left of the finish line gantry. So you had to do a little zig to the left, and then after the finish line, another zig to the right to get back on the course. But those first four, despite the lead motorbike actually making that little chicane, they ran straight. So they went on the wrong side of the cones, straight through the finish line to start their next lap. Now, if you add the chicane this way and the chicane that way, it was probably only about 5 meters that they gained. And they were in the top four at the time. On the second lap, Gwen Jorgensen actually ran away through two of them up into third, didn't catch the front two. And then after a few hours after the finish line and with some protests by the relevant teams, those four who went the wrong way were disqualified. Now, obviously, it's a bit controversial because none of them intended to gain an advantage. None of them did it on purpose. Honest mistake, I think, and I think everyone would probably agree with that. And even Gwen Jorgensen did say afterwards that it's not the kind of way you want to win a race. However, they did cut the course.
Yeah,
I mean, not run the whole course.
From the map, it's not that obvious. And if you were literally just turning up to the event, looking at the map, then, well, yeah, it doesn't look like the event has done its due diligence in terms of making sure the athletes have been notified and aware of how the course is laid out. But we've got to remember that for World Cups and WTCS events, athletes always do a recce of the course. They're allowed on the course. In fact, pretty sure it's mandatory that they do that. They will also had a race briefing. So really, there's not that much of an excuse, but you can also logically see why, when running flat out down this road, why you would just carry straight on.
Yeah, the argument, of course, is that the rest of the field was also running flat out down that road, including Arnold, who was just behind that lead group and actually realised that this is not where I'm supposed to go, turned and ran back onto that chicane. Gwen Jorgensen not far behind that, and she also was like, I know the way the course goes and it definitely doesn't go the way those girls have gone. I'm going to the left. So with all those arguments, they definitely did go the wrong route, and whoever led them astray or whatever reason, the fact of the matter is they did. Anyway, the outcome was World Triathlon had no option but to disqualify them for not completing the whole course. It meant that Gwen Jorgensen was bumped up to first place and the victory, with Gina Sereno, also from the USA, bumped up to second, and Vicky Holland from GB taking third on that podium, which they actually handed out a good 3 hours later after all the protests and disqualifications, which is relevant because all of these ladies are chasing points and world rankings for next year's Paris, particularly Gwen Jorgensen, who's on the comeback trail. She's not only trying to get points to get her ranking up, she's also trying to get enough points to get into the big points races early next year so she can get her ranking even higher. And she's been on a bit of a world tour, as it were, going from race to race, trying to get as many points as possible. So they all count. Katie Zaferis, who was disqualified, actually dropped down 2 spots in the ranking after this, whereas Gwen Jorgensen bumped up 3. And if those two may be competing for that third and final spot in the American team, this could be the deciding factor.
Well, exactly. I mean, going into next year, Gwen Jorgensen is now in 30th in the World Triathlon rankings. She's also 5th in the US leader table. So going into WTCS races next year, for Abu Dhabi, for instance, first race, she's in a very good position ahead of Zaferis. And obviously also valuable points for Vicky Holland. What's interesting around this topic is that obviously the men's race was after. Miraculously, a Marshall and Sign appeared on that on particular that corner.
Yeah, exactly. So they were directed the right way. Yeah, so it does seem like a bit of a not that big of an event. It's a World Cup somewhere, and no one's really watching it. But now, when you put it into perspective with all of this, it suddenly could be literally the tipping point on who goes to the Olympics and who doesn't. So a bit dramatic and not really the way you wanted these things decided.
Yeah, and finally, just the men's results. There was less drama there. So it was won by Manuel Macias, and in second, Miguel Hidalgo, and in third, Aram Moisen.
And then we had another race this past weekend, and that was Ironman 70.3 Melbourne, which we alluded to earlier because a certain Hayden Wilde decided to do a 70.3. His goal was to qualify for the 70.3 World Champs, which is going to be in his hometown of Taupo next year and at the end of the year after the Olympics, which is obviously his first focus. And Hayden Wilde threw down quite the performance. In fact, you're probably not going out on a limb now to say that he might be the favourite in waiting for the 70.3 world title.
Oh, absolutely. Year. I mean, it was an absolutely phenomenal performance. And this also comes after his Noosa performance, where, again, he broke away there and took the win quite convincingly, non-drafting format. This weekend, he broke away on the bike, put 4 minutes into the chasers, and then, as you expect, it's Hayden Wilde on the run. He put another 4 minutes into them on the run to take an 8-minute margin victory.
Yeah, and it's actually the third fastest run anywhere in the world in 70.3 this whole year. The only people that have run faster than him, Dylan Magnian and Jason West, and even those were only a few seconds faster at other events. And he did say that he actually eased off after about 12 Ks because he was 8 minutes in the lead. So, I mean, how much more does he have in the tank? You do kind of think, well, I mean, if he is still in form come next year, November after the Olympics, he is going to be the nailed-on favourite for the 70.3.
Well, I mean, smart move. He's got his qualification. He's sorted now for next year. He can focus on the Olympics, and then he'll come back. Yeah, to hopefully win there. He took the win, obviously, ahead of Nick Thompson in second and Stephen McKenna in third.
And then on the women's side, Amelia Watkinson took the win ahead of Natalie van Koeverden, with Lotte Wilms taking third place there.
Yeah, coming up this weekend, quite a big event, Ironman Cozumel. Obviously, Sebastian Kingsley racing there as his final race. We've got the likes of Leon Chevalier, rocking up there, Cam Worth, Arnaud Galot, Chris Lieferman, Cody Beals, and obviously many more. And again, this is an opportunity for a lot of them to try and punch their ticket for the Ironman World Championships next year and be done with it almost.
Yeah. So I don't think any of them are going to give Seb Keenley the golden carpet to finish his career, are they? I mean, they might pat him on the back later on once they've finished, but no one's going to be giving him an easy ride there. Also, as we mentioned, 70.3 Mossel Bay in South Africa, where Javi Gomez is going to be in action, and 70.3 Fortaleza, the Latin American champs, also happening this weekend, as well as Challenge Florianopolis, another one in South America. All right, now it's time for some of the stuff you guys have sent us, our Pinboard. And this month we're asking for things that triathletes do that aren't triathlon in the off-season. So what you get up to keep yourself fit, and now that triathlon's kind of winding down for the season. We've got some interesting ones.
What do you do, James?
Watch Netflix. Does that count? I mean, at the moment I'm getting pretty unfit. I need to get out there and start. Anyway, enough about me. If you have your own hobbies that you're doing or other things you do to keep yourself fit in the off-season, upload them now. Uploader is on screen. We're going to run through some of the ones we've been sent, starting with this one from John. And actually, this one is pretty much a triathlon.
It is, yeah. I mean, he didn't get the memo clearly, but it's pretty cool.
We've given him a pat on the back anyway. He said, this is the top of the Troodos Mountains in Cyprus. Photo taken last Saturday, the 4th of November, finishing the Olympus Man Extreme for the third time. Race starts in Paphos Harbour with a point-to-point swim, then it's onto the bike for 178 Ks with over 4,000 metres of climbing to Mount Olympus, and then you embark on a 43K run on trails, mostly in the dark, or within the 16-hour cutoff. The race is only on the go for 3 years, and this year I was lucky enough, we had 4 starting enough to fill the podium. I would definitely recommend the race for anyone looking for a decent challenge. I say it every year after the race, never again, but I found myself drawn back to it. Well, I mean, it's not triathlon, it's actually a very impressive triathlon by the looks of things.
I feel like we've got to go and try this one out sometime. I mean, they've got an actual finish gantry and finish line area for just a few people.
It looks, it's quite the challenge.
Right, next one from Sarah. Sarah from Alberta. Instead of swim, bike, run, why not jump, balance, climb? As silly as it may look, I found by changing up my training over the off-season, not only rejuvenates you, but this style of training teaches your body awareness, which has come in handy. navigating tricky terrain when racing Xterras. So.
Disclaimer, she sped up the balance walk. She didn't actually do the balance. But still, she's balancing on a big tractor tyre, which is
pretty cool,
quite impressive. Yeah, and I think it probably does translate quite well to your triathlon performance next season. Then we also had this one, which also, similar vein, Stephanie from Germany. She says, Paul, Laura, Nain, Avi, and me decided to enter a mud race in our off-season. It was so much fun. We felt like kids in a giant playground. At first, it was a bit disgusting, but after a few unintentional steps in the mud, you get used to it. The skin feels amazing afterwards. Yeah, she's got a big smile on her face.
Hey, nice.
It looks like she was having a lot of fun carrying sandbags in the mud, as you do.
Nice. Next one from Erin from Colorado. Rode the Colorado Trail, segment 6. I don't know what that is, but clearly if you're in the know, you know. From Kennesaw Pass to Georgia Pass, starting elevation of 10,000 feet. We rode 24 miles, climbed 3,700 feet, and topped out above tree line at nearly 11,800 feet. Snacks were plentiful, and the aspen were popping.
Yeah, she got some good photos out of that.
Awesome. That looks like a cracking trip.
Looks like she chose a good weather day for that one.
I want to go and ride that.
If your off-season looks like that, you're doing quite well. And then finally, we have this one from Ertiom, who is somewhere in the Swiss Alps. My new off-season passion and source of adrenaline, hard boots, snowboarding, extreme carving, and some parallel slalom. Photos are taken during a carving camp held by Swiss Olympic champion Nevin Gelmarini. And yeah, I mean...
Good carve on there as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
Using those leg muscles. I'm not sure my leg muscles do that, to be honest.
Okay, next one. This one, I've got to say, it's impressed me a lot. This is very impressive. This is from Stephanie from Wisconsin. Outside of ultra running and training, I participate in my hobby of competitive dance games called In the Groove, ITG for short. Run on the Stepmania platform. You used that one, didn't you?
Yeah, no.
This game is similar to Dance Revolution. You hit pedals or panels to corresponding notes on the screen. Goes on. I mean, she started off by saying she does ultra running, but if you watch the speed of her feet in it, it's insane. I don't know how she's keeping up with it. I can't even see the arrows.
Mark thinks she's speed ramped this video.
I mean, I assume she hasn't.
I feel a challenge coming on.
It's mad. It's so impressive.
I mean, who needs an indoor trainer? Who needs a Wahoo kicker when you've got one of those to keep your legs moving in winter? It's definitely an interesting off-season pursuit. If you have your own interesting off-season pursuits, we'd love to see a video or photos of those. Use the uploader, and we'll be featuring them next week. Thanks for sending them in.
Say what? All right, some good comments under some videos this last week. First from ZZYYXX22. Great username, thank you. They said, is having such long hair in a bun under a cap more aero than having a more round shape in the same way bike helmets work? And a few likes under this, and actually a couple of people saying, I've always been wondering the same.
I think they're more worried about hydrodynamics than aerodynamics.
Well, yes,
but
just being technical.
But not suggesting that she chops it all off to taste. Although... Or maybe she's up for it. We'll ask her. Anyway.
I actually did a little bit of research here, and there was an article on SwimSwam, actually written by Gary Hall, who is a 10-time world record holder and 3-time Olympian. Actually, he went to the effort of doing some proper testing in Florida using a propulsion drag meter, and basically he tested, unfortunately not with a bun. Clearly he doesn't have a bun, but he did test different swim caps.
I thought you were going to say you went to the effort of growing a bun.
He should have done.
Test.
Maybe we should get in touch and see if we can redo this one. But he tested with just a standard silicone cap, which can get a bit wrinkly, versus what they call the dome caps, which are the proper racing caps, which you may have worn before. They're a little bit thicker. That means you get less wrinkles in them, basically what all the Olympic swimmers wear and racing at the Olympics in. And they tested the average frontal drag force. And they said whilst wearing the thinner silicone cap, it had a drag force of 226 newtons, whilst with the dome racing cap, just 202 newtons, which means a whole 10.5% reduction in drag just from the type of cap that they're using.
Very significant. It still doesn't answer the question.
It doesn't, but I thought it was very interesting.
Where do you tie up your hair, and if you tied up your hair in a top knot underneath the dome cap and made like a kind of cone head, would you be faster than if you tied it up at the back and put the dome cap over it?
So I was thinking a little bit about this. So obviously with the aero helmets, the whole idea is it's tucked into kind of like the small of your back here.
Yeah.
And that's how we make it aero. Obviously when you're swimming, you're looking almost straight down below you. So that kind of bun is sticking up there. Also though, and this is where like the Cas Bambino and things come in, where there's got that like kind of more rounded back to the helmet. That's for sort of slight movements around. The bun, you are moving around, so it's not like...
move your head a lot in the water.
So there's a lot to consider here, and I don't have the answer.
I think the answer is definitely shave off all your hair and put a dome cap over your...
Belinda Tremblay
put a dome cap over the stubble. Yeah, there we go. That's the answer. See commitment to your swim hydrodynamics, please.
And another one from Bike, Dog and Trips, also in the same video actually, which was Belinda, our camera operator, her recent video wearing the form goggles, using them for coaching. He said, "You really should stop picking your nose, Mark."
Well, she's not wrong. You should stop picking your nose.
Yeah, I should, yeah.
No, okay, we're going to defend Mark here a little bit. Mark has a good reason why his nose was a bit red and scabby.
There's quite...
day.
I sort of feel like...
say a good reason. He has a reason. How good it is for you to judge.
So a bit of a public announcement here ahead of about 20 videos that are about to go out on GTN. Me with a scab on the very end of my nose, and it's quite obvious. I decided to wear an inflatable T-Rex outfit for a social run.
For a Halloween social run. Mark decided to dress in it.
And it was great. Well, no, it wasn't great, actually. It was really, really uncomfortable and very hot.
And he was looking through a mesh screen, and the mesh screen was touching his nose for an entire run.
And I didn't think it was that bad until the next day, and I woke up and half my nose had rubbed off. So
that's why Mark has a damaged nose. We're going to call it the T-Rex nose, for his T-Rex nose was longer than his T-Rex arms.
All right, well, that is it for the show this week. Coming up, we have James attempting a triathlon purely on run training.
Yeah, not necessarily recommended, but a pretty good, interesting video there. You have to watch the video. I did a whole triathlon middle distance without any swim or bike training.
Yeah, and also if you want to watch a video right now, you watch me doing a 5K on top of a volcano. In fact, I actually did one at sea level too. So essentially the idea was comparing altitude versus non-altitude and the difference. And it was pretty substantial, actually.
Spoiler alert, it's harder to run on the top of a mountain.
But you get to see me suffer.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely worth a watch. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.